The boy who vanished. The bones that waited 40 years. September 1976. The 14-year-old kid walks out of a Long Island house and never walks back in. His name was Duane-Sirna. Brown hair, skinny, smile like he hadn't figured out the world was rotten yet. His mother told the cops. The cops told her he was a runaway. Case closed, file buried. For 43 years, she waited by a phone that never rang. 43 years of birthdays with no candles. 43 years of empty chairs. And somewhere in the woods of Suffolk County, a skull was sleeping in the dirt, waiting for someone to ask the right question. This is the story of a boy the system forgot, a killer who slept easy, and a stain that 40 years of rain couldn't wash clean. Act 1. The Stain. A teenager vanishes from a quiet Long Island street. September 14th, 1976. Massapequa, New York. The kind of suburb where the lawns are cut on Saturdays and the secrets are buried by Sunday. Duane-Sirna was 14 years old. He liked motorcycles. He liked tinkering with engines. He liked the idea of being older than he was. That afternoon, he told his mother he was going out. Just out, the way teenagers do. He never came home. Phyllis Sirna waited. 1 hour. 2. By midnight, she was on the phone with the Suffolk County Police. The desk sergeant wrote it down with all the urgency of a man ordering coffee. Teenage boy probably ran off. They'd keep an eye out. That was the investigation. That was it. No canvas, no search party, no dogs in the woods behind the house. Just a manila folder with a single sheet inside and the word "Runaway" stamped in blue ink. But Duane wasn't a runaway. He hadn't taken his wallet. He hadn't taken a change of clothes. He hadn't taken the motorcycle parts he'd been saving up for, scattered across his bedroom floor like a puzzle he meant to finish. He'd taken nothing, because he hadn't planned to leave. Phyllis knew. Mothers always know. She told them again. She told them louder. She told them every year on his birthday for 4 decades. They smiled. They nodded. They moved her folder to the back of the cabinet. And in a stretch of woods, less than 5 miles from the Sirna front door, the rain started falling on something soft. Something that used to laugh at dinner. Something the cops should have found in 1976, if they'd bothered to look. By the time anyone listened to Phyllis Sirna again, she'd be in her 70s, and the boy in the dirt would be nothing but teeth and bone, and a question nobody wanted to answer. Act 2. The Shadows. 4 decades of silence and a folder gathering dust. The 70s bled into the 80s, the 80s into the 90s. Phyllis kept calling. Different detectives, same answer. "Ma'am, kid's run away. He'll turn up." 40 years of that line. 40 years of professional shrugs. She put up flyers. She wrote letters. She called the FBI. She called reporters. She called anyone who'd answer. Nobody did. Because Duane-Sirna had been categorized. And in police filing cabinets, categories are coffins. Meanwhile, the kids he'd known were growing up, getting married, having kids of their own. Some of them remembered the rumors that Duane had been hanging around older guys, rough guys, guys with bikes and bad reputations, and a particular interest in young boys who wanted to feel grown. One name kept whispering through the neighborhood. A local man, a neighbor, someone Duane had known. But whispers aren't evidence. and nobody was investigating anyway. The detectives who took Phyllis's first call retired, died. Their replacements inherited a file with a single word on it and didn't bother reading deeper. The case wasn't cold, it was frozen, entombed. The boy hadn't run from his life. He'd been pulled out of it by a hand he trusted. Then came 2019. A woman in a Suffolk County cold case unit pulled the folder. She read it, all of it. Phyllis's notes, the original missing persons report, the bedroom inventory. And she said the words nobody had said in 43 years. This kid didn't run away. She started knocking on doors, old doors, doors of people who'd grown old keeping a secret. One of those doors belonged to a man, an old man now. A man who used to live down the block from the Sirnas.
A man who had something to say, something he'd been holding for half a century. And what he said cracked the case wide open. Because in 1976, he had seen something. He had seen Duane-Sirna get into a car. He just hadn't seen him get out. Act 3. The deviant. The neighbor with the smile and the rotten basement. His name doesn't matter yet. Call him the neighbor. Mid-30s in 1976. Wife, job, a house with white trim and a basement nobody was invited into. He liked teenage boys, liked having them around, liked offering them beer and cigarettes and rides in his car. The neighborhood knew. The neighborhood always knows. But the 70s had a way of not knowing on purpose. He was the kind of man who got called a little weird at barbecues. Nothing more, nothing actionable, just weird. Duane trusted him. Duane was 14 and stupid and hungry to be treated like a man. The neighbor was happy to oblige. Investigators dug into his past, found complaints, found whispers, found 3 other kids over the years who'd told their parents he made them uncomfortable, found parents who'd told their kids to stay away, but who'd never called the police. Because what would they say? That he gave their boy a Coke? They pulled his old records, found a workshop he'd kept in those years, a property out east, wooded, private. The kind of place a man could do anything and nobody would hear. They walked it. The current owners watched from the porch as detectives swept the trees with cadaver dogs. The dogs hit. They hit hard. They hit on a patch of earth under a collapsed shed. 6 feet down, wrapped in what was left of a 1970s blanket, the bones of a boy. A small skull with a fracture above the right ear. A motorcycle keychain in what used to be a pocket. The kind a 14-year-old saves up for. DNA confirmed it that winter. Duane-Sirna, found. 43 years after the cops told his mother he'd run away. And the neighbor, the man who'd put him there, he was alive, 81 years old, living in Florida, sitting on a porch, drinking lemonade, watching the sunset. Waiting, though he didn't know it yet, for a knock on the door. Act 4. The Trap. A knock on the door in Florida. February 2020. 2 detectives flew south. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't call ahead. They just showed up. The old man opened the door in slippers, smiled, asked if he could help them. They asked about Duane-Sirna. The smile died. He invited them in. Big mistake. For 3 hours, they sat across from him. They had the bones, they had the keychain, they had the testimony of the man down the block who'd seen Duane get into his car that September afternoon. They had a wife, long divorced, who remembered him coming home that night with mud on his boots and a story that didn't add up. They had everything, and he knew it. He didn't confess. He never confessed. Men like him almost never do. He lawyered up. He went quiet. He sat in that Florida house with the curtains drawn while the indictment came down. Murder, second degree. 43 years late, but still spelled the same way. They extradited him in chains. An 81-year-old man in a wheelchair shuffled through an airport in shackles, cameras flashing. He didn't look at them. He looked at the floor. Phyllis Sirna was waiting in New York. She was 78. She had lived to see this day. Barely. In the courtroom, she sat in the front row. She wore a small photograph of her son pinned to her blouse. The 14-year-old face. Forever 14. When they wheeled him in, she didn't cry. She just stared. The way a mother stares at the man who took her child. He pleaded not guilty. Of course he did. Men like him always do. But the bones don't lie. The keychain doesn't lie. The dirt under the shed doesn't lie. The trial was set. The evidence was overwhelming. And for the first time in 43 years, Duane-Sirna had a voice. A small voice. A bone voice. But loud enough now to be heard. Act 5. The void. A mother gets her answer. The wrong one. He died before the trial. 82 years old. Heart attack in a jail cell. The kind of ending that feels like cheating. No verdict, no sentencing, no moment where a judge looked him in the eye and named what he was. Just a death certificate and a case marked closed without a conviction. Phyllis Sirna got her son's bones back. She buried him in the spring. A small grave, a small stone. A name that should have been on a wedding invitation, on a driver's license, on a grandchild's birth certificate. A name that should have been on a wedding invitation, on a driver's license, on a grandchild's birth certificate. Instead, it was on granite. She told reporters she was grateful. Grateful for the truth. Grateful for the woman in the cold case unit who pulled the folder. Grateful her son was no longer just a question. But you could see it in her eyes. Grateful isn't healed. Grateful isn't whole. 43 years she'd carried him. Every minute, every birthday, every Christmas morning with one less stocking on the mantle. And the system that failed her in 1976, the desk sergeant who shrugged, the detectives who filed her away, none of them ever apologized. Most of them were dead too. Duane-Sirna didn't run away. He was murdered by a man the neighborhood knew was wrong. A man the police never questioned. A man who lived a full life, wife, job, retirement, lemonade on a porch, while a mother counted the years in tears. That's not justice. That's just an ending. And endings aren't the same thing. Epilogue. What the dirt kept, what the badge lost. Duane-Sirna was 14 years old. He liked motorcycles. He liked tinkering. He liked the idea of being older than he was. He walked out of his house on a September afternoon in 1976 and got into a car with a man he trusted. The dirt kept him for 43 years. The badge kept him on a runaway list. His mother kept him in her heart until the day she could finally lay him down. One cold case detective, one folder, one question nobody had bothered to ask. That's all it took. That's all it ever takes. And somewhere, in a quiet cemetery on Long Island, a 14-year-old boy is finally home. Forever 14. Forever waiting. Forever